It first flared up when when I only had the one son, and he was probably just over a year old, and my husband was in Afghanistan, and I was trying to get him to nursery so that I could get to work. And I literally, the classic, I think I bent over to put a shoe on or something, and my back went. But what I know now is actually that pain is a result of many, many factors, which include psychological factors and social factors, as well as biological factors. It was really scary because he called me from the helicopter, from the sat phone, and said, we've just crashed. The wife support there was really valuable. And it is really valuable because your own family, your own siblings, your parents, they don't really get it as much as they'd want to. I was sort of bottling up anger and resentment towards my husband. I'm wiping nappies back at home, having done my degree, done my officer training and done all of that. I just felt that it's not fair.
Okay, so if someone's listening to this and they are feeling super overwhelmed and they're struggling with chronic pain, what would be your first bit of advice for them to kind of help themselves?
First of all, I'd say I'm Katie Rothwell, and I've got a couple of links to the military. My uncle was captain in the Navy, and my husband was a helicopter pilot in the Royal Air Force, and I myself was also in the Royal Air Force as a physical education officer. I guess I got interested in the military from cadets at school. I was an army cadet at school, really enjoyed it, went to university, joined the officer training corps. And then I was looking at joining the army, but realised that I could join the RAF as a physical education officer, which is what my true passion was. So that's the reason I went RAF. And actually, I'm meeting up with a whole bunch of my officer training corps friends this weekend. And this was what? Nearly 20 years on. So some good friends had. So joined up as a physical education officer and then married my then boyfriend, and just hoped that we would be co-located. We met at university. He was in the air squadron and I was in the officer training corps, and I wanted to join the military, and so did he. And then he went away, did his Cranwell, and then I left uni a year later and I wanted to do my Cranwell, so off I went to Cranwell.
What is Cranwell?
It's the officer training. It's the equivalent of Dartmouth.
Right, got it.
Dartmouth, Sandhurst, Cranwell, they're the three officer training colleges.
So after marrying your husband, so you were both serving at that point, is that right? You'd finished your training. What were some of the biggest changes in your life? Like, how did that impact you and your relationships?
So we were actually co-located at the time.
Nice.
At RAF Benson. And I remember emailing my posting officer and I said, I'm about to get married, so I'm going to have a name change. I'm getting married to an RAF officer. This is his service number. Please keep us co-located, because we're currently both serving at RAF Benson. And you can only request co-location if you are married.
Yeah.
We were already living in our own house, so moving into a marriage quarter and all that didn't really have an effect on us because we were just living in our own house. And I kid you not, 10 days later, after sending that email, I get a call from my posting officer to say, we've got you a posting in the Falkland Islands, so you'll be going in October, and I was getting married in the August. I was like, what part of co-location did you not get?
Wow.
So, yeah, I had a pretend family Christmas with my parents in October, and off I trotted to the Falklands for 6 months in our first year of marriage.
God, those pretend Christmases as well. There's a few like naval ships that are away where they've had to do that like early Christmas, and they're not the same, are they?
Well, do you know, they're not, but you feel really special because my parents hosted it, and they even got the villagers to come round and sing Christmas carols.
Oh. That's
in
so
October.
lovely.
It was really nice.
Like a real
Um,
community thing. Did you feel like you
yeah,
had a little send off then before you
yeah, I
had to
did.
go away?
Yeah, no, it was good. So yeah, first year of marriage and apart for 6 months. So I got back from the Falklands and then pretty much got pregnant. So yeah, kind of a year on from getting back, we had baby number one, and then 18 months on from there, baby number two. And that's when that's when my husband was sort of thick in doing the Iraq Afghanistan stints, every kind of 8 months he would be going out for 3 months, and I was sort of juggling RAF career and mum and solo parenting, not near grandparents and everything. You probably know the score. And I was offered then redundancy for my branch and rank, and I thought actually both of us serving is going to prove quite difficult at some point if we both end up deployed at the same time. So I took the voluntary redundancy after about 7 years of being in.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to.
Are you glad you did it? Do you regret that? Or
Um, a bit of both. Like, I just don't know how I could have been the mum that I wanted to be whilst serving, with a
yeah,
husband serving as well. I know there are couples out there that do it, and I really, really admire that. But I think they call in sort of nannies and grandparents and all that to help.
yeah,
And I didn't want to do that and couldn't really. So I do miss the team element. There's lots of bits I miss about the military, but then you always remember the good bits, don't you? And my
yeah,
husband would sort of remind me of the bad bits and the bits that used to really frustrate you, and you know so yeah, I miss it, but I probably left at the right time for family life.
yeah. That's it. And so then you started out being a veteran and a full-time mum at that point. Yeah.
Yeah,
You settle into it nicely.
yeah, so
The
I
break
was a
was
bit sort of
nice.
I didn't really know what to do, and I always actually at school wanted to be a physiotherapist. And then as when I was leaving, I had chronic back pain, and I was lucky enough to have the RAF support then, because they sent me on a month-long rehab course at Holton, and paid for MRI scans and all of this. So I was sort of managing that back pain and also thinking, can I really carry on doing this with this back pain? So I was having treatment from a massage therapist and cranial sacral therapist, and she sort of said to me, why don't you do this? If you're leaving the Air Force and you don't really know what to do this. Because I was really, really interested. Every time I went to her, I was asking questions. So that's what I did. I did my Prince 2 project management course with the RAF. I also did my HR course with the RAF. And then I was like, stuff that. I'm going to go do a massage course and be a massage therapist and help people with pain.
Okay, so I'm quite interested in this because obviously I know the story, but I want to go over it again about how that pain all came about and the impact that it had on you, because I know that there will be people listening that are possibly going through something similar. Um, so yeah, tell me how that pain came about.
So it first flared up when when I only had the one son, and he was probably just over a year old, and my husband was in Afghanistan, and I was trying to get him to nursery so that I could get to work. And I literally, the classic, I think I bent over to put a shoe on or something, and my back went, and I was in agony. I could barely get him to the car. Thankfully, he was just about walking. So I was like, you're going to have to walk yourself to the car. And I sort of hunched over his car seat, trying to doing it up one-handed and get him to nursery. And I got the nursery workers to get him out the car because I was in so much pain. And I think this was 12 years ago now. I've learned so much about pain, but I've also come from my degree is in physiology and sports science. So I've come from that background. So I was very much thinking it must be structural, it must be physical. The amount of pain I'm in, I must have done some pretty bad damage to my back. And I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease. And I remember my consultant saying I shouldn't do anything that should impact on my spine, such as running, assault courses, adventurous training, hiking, all this stuff that I was doing in the RAF. I thought, I can't not do that. That's kind of who I am. But everything I've learned since is that pain isn't necessarily physical, and that my MRI scan, my degenerative disc disease diagnosis, wasn't actually the cause of my pain, because any 30-year-old, I was 30 at the time, could have a scan and 50% of them will show some kind of degeneration. And they were pinning that on my pain. It's like saying you've got really bad pain because you've got wrinkles or grey hair. It's just like a sign of aging.
Okay,
And
so what was a standard sign of aging? So was this done on like X-ray, right? So
it
they're
was an
looking at your
MRI
spine,
scan.
right? And they're
Yeah.
looking at your spine and they're going, "Ah, that must be the cause. Look, she's got a bit of wear and tear on her spine. That's causing the back pain." They're basically trying to just give an answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But what I know now is actually that pain is a result of many, many factors, which include psychological factors and social factors, as well as biological factors. And given that I was solo parenting, husband at war, husband had also crashed an aircraft at some point in that period. And I remember getting that phone call.
How was
Um,
that? What was that phone call like then? That must have been horrific.
it was really scary because he called me from the helicopter, from the sat phone, and said,
Oh, wow.
we've just crashed, but I'm fine. Please don't worry.
Oh, God.
And he named the pilot that he was with, because I'm very good friends with his wife. So I came off the phone, and because I had a little baby sleeping upstairs, I phoned the wife and I was like, have you just heard from your husband? She went, yeah. I said, are you all right? She was like, yeah. But we both had babies sleeping upstairs, so we couldn't just leave the house and go and have a gin and tonic and a hug and a sob. We had to stay in our houses to monitor our kids. So I remember sitting on the phone with her, and we both poured our gin and tonics in our own house and just sat and chatted.
Oh, my
So
God.
yeah, the wife support there was really valuable.
Yeah.
And it is really valuable because your own family, your own siblings, your parents, they don't really get it as much as they'd want to.
Yeah.
Whereas a fellow wife does get it.
It's so
So
important, isn't it? That community.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was sort of at a similar time to my back pain. As I said, I was solo parenting. You're not really getting much sleep when you're solo parenting. I wasn't in my usual regime of exercise. I wasn't exercising as much. I'd had a C-section, so I was probably a bit cautious of my
Wow.
abdominals.
You've got a
So
lot going on here. Like
yeah,
it's all just piling on.
and this is what pain can be a result of.
But did
It's
you
like a
know that at the
pressure
time?
cooker. No, I didn't know that at the time. I thought I damaged my spine for good.
Right. So how did you
Um,
realise that your spine wasn't damaged?
it took me a good couple of years. And I had a fear of movement, fear of running, fear of anything like that. And it wasn't until I had an appointment with an osteopath, and he put me in the direction of Lorimer Mosley's work, who's a pain specialist in Australia. And I watched his TED talk, and it gave me a better understanding of pain and how pain isn't necessarily physical. It's this multifaceted sort of process that goes on in the body. And when the body senses that it's in danger or any stress factors, it produces pain, because pain is there to protect us. So my body was telling me I was in danger. I was really stressed out, not sleeping,
Yeah.
all of this, piling it into this pressure cooker. And then it explodes with, in my instance, back pain.
Okay. So did you have a bit of a light bulb moment then when you watched that?
Yes, definitely. It was a bit of a light bulb moment. And then I guess the second sort of light bulb moment, when he left the military, we moved to Saudi Arabia. And by this time, we'd had two children. So the youngest was a newborn, and he moved to Saudi, and I was meant to get a visa like 3 months later. That turned into 2 years waiting for a visa. So at this point, I've got a toddler, a newborn, and I'm solo parenting. So it was harder than when he was in the military.
Yeah.
Because at least the military, they kind of bring him back every now and then.
And you have the support network, don't
Yeah,
you? So
yeah,
you didn't have that
exactly.
now.
I felt like that comfort blanket had been whipped away when you leave the military. And I was really stressed, and I was noticing that episodes of my pain was increasing the more stress that I felt.
Yeah.
And it was when I finally got to Saudi Arabia, it was a South African physio there that said to me, if you want to run, just go and run. Your body will thank you for it. And I thought, no, I can't run because it's impacting my spine. And she was like, no, do it. She gave me the confidence to do it. So I did a run around the compound, and I felt great. I was like, okay, I can do this. This is good for me. So I ended up joining the triathlon club in Riyadh in Saudi, and gradually getting my life back from back pain.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
how was that first run then? Was you like shattered, or was you just like it, like you'd never stop running?
Well, I
Or
eased into it. Yeah, I did like a run walk, like one lap around the compound,
yeah, like
just to
rehab
see if
training.
it would flare up or not. And it didn't flare up, and I felt good. And I now know that exercise is actually like nutrition for the body.
Yeah.
It gives you these endorphins. It opens up that drugs cabinet, your own drugs cabinet. So releasing endorphins is like morphine for the body. So it really helps people in pain.
Yeah.
But when we have a fear of movement, like the consultant said, don't run, then that the fear increases pain.
I love that because there are like so many people that are suffering and struggling that it's like you switch off to it, don't you? Because I've been there before when you know the best thing for you, but and everyone's telling you, oh, you should do this, you should exercise, or you should work out, or you should eat well, and you know you should, but you just don't have it in you. Instead, you opt to curl up on the sofa with a cup of tea and some biscuits, and knowing that you shouldn't really be doing that, that you should be doing something else. I wonder what.
I know. We end up going down that downward spiral. But I
Yeah,
think when you realise like the reasons behind how beneficial exercise is for people in pain, and you actually understand the science, and this is why. So I now coach people in pain. And one of my clients said, of course you don't want to exercise and eat well when you're suffering, but when I explain why, you want to give it a go, and then you feel better, and you're like,
yeah.
oh, let's do more of it. So it's like you're in the downward spiral of pain, but then once you start to get a bit of knowledge that empowers you, then you can start climbing out that spiral and back up again.
So I have a bit of a paradigm, and I've been this way my whole life, and I'm trying to break it, is that I go through a bit like a sine wave. I don't know if everyone knows what sine wave is, but just a wave, up, down, up, down. So I feel like I'm on a peak at the moment, and I'm all for going to the gym, being healthy, and all this stuff. But I know I'll come up, and then I'll start to ease off, and I'll be like, oh, I'll just have I'll just have some biscuits with my cup of tea, or
Yeah.
oh, I'm a bit tired. Do you know what? I'm not going to go to the gym today. I'm just going to watch my Netflix program, and those little things will start to slip in. It's happened. I've been through this cycle so many times, and those little bad habits creep back in, and then before you know it, I'm coming down and I'm back at the bottom, gaining weight, feeling crappy, eating junk, and then at some point it'll get to a point where I feel so bad and I think, gosh, something's got to change, and then I'll start again on the up. Like, and I don't think I'm the only person that does that. I think that's a lot of people go through these cycles. Like, so
Yeah.
how do you prevent that? The
Have
downward.
you come across a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits?
Yes.
And Steve Bartlett also buys into that, the 1%. Just do a 1% improvement each day. Don't try and, you know, conquer Mount Everest. And it's the same principle as how do you eat an elephant? You know, you don't eat a
Yeah.
whole lot at once. You just go bit by bit. So if you're just going to just change one thing, Michael Mosley's just one thing. You know, all these people, just focus on one thing and improve that. And then once you've done that for, I don't know what the science is, something like 30 days, then it becomes like an ingrained habit.
Yeah, it's the
The problem
sticking,
is, like with
it's
New
the
Year
sticking
coming
part
up,
one.
we kind of go, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the other, and then by February we're back to normal.
Yeah.
Back to our old selves. So I kind of I bring this into my pain program a little bit, because if I overwhelm someone, their pain's just going to get worse.
Yeah.
So it's just little bits. It's like drip feeding. What do we think we can manage this week, and just do that.
So when it gets to the point where those little negative things start to come in, like, oh, okay, I'll just have those biscuits, or I really don't want to go to the gym today. I'm not going. Like, how do you battle that when you're trying to make those changes and be consistent? What would you recommend to
I would say start setting your day, sort of at the very
take in
start of your day,
notes?
doing a bit of a journal and just
Yeah,
writing up what are your non-negotiables for that day.
non-negotiables. Okay.
And I actually use this journal from the Positive Wellness Journal, and they break everything down to what is my commitment today for my mind, body, and soul. So for my mind, maybe I'm going to sit and read a book or something. For
Yeah.
my body, I'm going to go out and do a dog walk, or I'm going to do something that moves my body, that nourishes my body, maybe a Pilates video, or whatever it might be. And then for my soul, what am I going to do for my soul? Maybe I'm going to watch
Okay.
a movie, or have a bath at the end of the day. And you just
Okay.
lay out those commitments right from the start. What are your non-negotiables? And then if everything else goes to pot and you just focus on that one thing, then
Don't
you've
punish
got a sense of
yourself.
achievement.
I think that's the problem. I think it's the punishing yourself that takes over, because it's not necessarily the having the biscuit with the cup of tea that's the problem. It's the punishing yourself afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Why did I do that? I've ruined everything. I may as well just go and eat a cake now.
That self-chat,
Yeah.
our inner talk, is so key to pain as well.
Yeah.
If we've got a very negative inner chatter, then our body senses that fear and it feels like it needs to defend us from something.
Right.
So we've got to kind of remind ourselves with that self-talk. Would you say those words to one of your best friends?
Right.
No, you wouldn't be that harsh.
No.
So kind of remind yourself, are you talking to yourself the way that you would talk to your friends?
Okay.
And, you know, praise yourself, give yourself a pat on the back.
Be
If
kind. So,
all you've done in a day is, you know, got outside for a few minutes, then that's good.
okay. So, not set your non-negotiables. Be kind to yourself. Yeah. So bringing this background to pain and your pain. So you started exercising, and the exercise is releasing all these kinds of endorphins that you referred to as like your body's drug cabinet, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's then helping with the pain. Is it the physical workout of the muscles that's helping with the pain, or is it the chemicals and the blood flow and the breath and all those things that are helping?
It's the fact that you're doing exercise releases these endorphins. So it's the
Right.
chemicals that help calm down the nervous system, which then calm down the pain.
Okay.
But, you know, it's also because we get pain from, so the emotional aspect of pain is if we like find that we're suppressing emotion or anger or resentment. In fact, that was another aha moment of my pain, actually, which we'll come on to maybe in a minute. If we're suppressing emotions, and maybe we've been doing this since childhood, our autonomic nervous system finds somewhere in the body to tense up.
Right.
And when that area tenses up, it doesn't get the blood flow because the muscles are all tight. And when it doesn't get the
Right.
blood flow, the muscles work anaerobically, which means they produce lactic acid, and lactic acid then changes the chemical receptors in our body to say we're in pain. So that's the connection with emotions leading to physical pain. So the exercise will help loosen up those muscles, flush out that lactic acid. So it's like multifaceted, really. You're getting the endorphins, you're getting those really good hormones, dopamine, etc., but you're also getting that flush through of lactic acid through the muscles, through those tight areas that have been maybe in spasm for a while, and a combined effect will help pain.
And is it instant?
Instant in the fact that when you probably finish your exercise, you'll feel a benefit. When you're actually exercising and you're really like maybe not enjoying it or something, but that's my other thing, is you need to enjoy what you're doing, and maybe don't call it exercise, just call it movement. You've got to enjoy it. So yeah, when you finish that episode of movement, then I think you immediately feel better, don't you?
Yeah, and obviously you would need to check that. Do you have to check that it's safe to exercise? Like, what if you're in pain and you think, oh, I know, I'll go on a run because that will help me feel better and stop the pain, but then you've like found out you've, I don't know, got a broken bone. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like a serious injury.
I think a lot of what I do is teaching people how to tune into their own bodies.
Yeah.
And if you've got an acute injury, like you sprained your ankle, then you are experiencing pain because your body's telling you to rest your ankle.
Right.
But it's when we start to go beyond that sort of typical 12-week period where tissue has healed,
right,
and we're still experiencing pain, that's when we go into this sort of persistent chronic pain cycle.
Right.
In which case any movement is good, but you've got to judge where your body is at that day. So listen to the body. If you feel like you can do a half an hour walk, then great. But if you feel like maybe just a 5-10 minute walk or a little bit of stretching is all you can manage, then that's what you do.
Okay, so it's persistent, long-term chronic pain. There's got to be something else going on than just an injury that you can't recover from. There's something deeper. Okay. And it's but that will that always be some kind of psychosomatic thing, that kind of chronic pain?
Nearly always. And I sort of specialize with back pain, and obviously there's a few sort of red flags that I look out for, like if you've got problems with your bladder or bowels, if you have rapid weight loss, if you've got an odd sensation in your saddle region, then that's potentially a physical cause, damage with the spine, and I'll be sending you to A&E and getting checked by the doctor. But most people that come to me they've tried the doctor, they've tried the physio, they've tried all of this, and they've been trying to look for the physical cause of pain, and they're just left kind of stumped. That's the kind of journey that people have been on when they tend to get to me. So then I'm pretty sure that their pain is caused by something other than a biological reason.
And can it manifest anywhere else other than the back? I know you specialize in the back pain, but is there any?
Yeah, I mean, I've got clients at the moment who've got foot pain, knee pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, the kind of the TMS syndrome, which is tension mind neuro syndrome, which is what John Sarno coined, is where we what I said about earlier, the emotions being trapped in the body. When we've got emotions that we don't want to feel, we want to repress them. That's when we start to feel tensions in the body. That can be anywhere. But you've got sort of common areas, which are lower back, neck, shoulders, that kind of thing.
Right. So obviously then you've got your beat pain methodology, which is what I want to talk to you now, because if someone's holding on to emotions and it's causing pain, obviously there's all the physical things they can do to help, but don't they need therapy to deal with those emotions? Like,
so I'll start that answer with my own experience of that aha moment that I mentioned. So I do cranial sacral therapy, and part of that is you can get a somatic emotional release, where you get this literally emotional release from the body, and it's quite amazing, really. And when I did that training, I had my own emotional release. So this is, sort of 10 years on from when I had my back pain, and I thought, I'm managing it. And what came out was that I was sort of bottling up anger and resentment towards my husband, because he gets to go to war, he gets to carry on his career, yet I'm wiping nappies back at home, having done my degree, done my officer training, and done all of that. I just felt that it's not fair. But I wasn't.
Hold on, sorry, is that because you were in the RAF and so you were missing it?
I think whether you're serving or not serving, you could probably relate to that, because if you're the wife left behind to do the childcare, you might, even if you're not serving, you probably still experience a bit of anger and resentment, maybe.
I definitely have, but it's normally like when my husband phones me and says he's drinking beer on the beach in Barbados or something. It's like, oh,
yeah, exactly.
I'm busy wiping bums and cleaning up vomit.
One of them was, he got this great job in Saudi Arabia, and I'm not really coping back home with 2 kids, not sleeping and all of that. And he sends me a picture of him on the sunbed. I'm just like, that's not helping.
No, definitely not.
So anyway, these emotions all came out, my whole body was sort of shaking. And I was like, wow, because I'd had cranial sacral therapy right from the outset of my pain. And I went back to the therapist and I said, why didn't I get this release? I kind of knew I needed something, but it didn't happen. And she said, well, you've got to feel safe in yourself to allow it to happen. And at that time, I felt like I was kind of putting on an act for the kids. I'm fine, everything's fine. The sort of duck above the water. Mum's cool. But I couldn't release it then because I was still in the thick of it.
Gosh.
Whereas now, house in Shropshire, the kids are in school, we've got a much more settled life. That's when my body decided, okay, we can release it now. So yes, you can have therapy in the form of like cranial sacral therapy, somatic experiencing, all this kind of thing, which I do. But I also, because my beat pain program is all online, we do a lot of it through education and journaling, and I sort of teach somatic exercising, like through my Pilates instruction. So I'm allowing the client to have this introspection, this understanding of their body, so that should that emotional release need to happen, we're giving the space to allow it to happen.
Yeah, that's incredible. I can't believe all the things that you were holding on to over the years. I mean, it's a wonder you only had a bad back. You went through so much. Like, that's incredible, really. Even giving up your career and then all the things as a military wife, you went through some really extreme things.
Well, the military wife bit was hard, I guess, but I had the support of the other military wives, and I understood the military. And I remember saying to him, when you go, please can you be really open about what you're experiencing, because I've done the officer training. I'd like to think I understand it, and I want you to be able to share it and offload it. And he says, like, yeah, sure. And he came back, and I was like, he was telling me stories and stuff. But then I remember my dad asked him, oh, do you keep a journal? And he says, yeah, I do, but I wouldn't let Katie read it. And I was like, why? He goes, because if you read it, you wouldn't want me going back out.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, so you haven't told me everything. So yeah, that was a bit sort of odd. Not odd, I guess. I kind of just had to come to terms with that he didn't want to share everything with me.
But do you know, it's such a healthy thing, though, that he was journaling while he was out there.
Yeah,
obviously,
absolutely.
He used that as some kind of strategy for himself to handle what he was dealing with. So that's quite impressive, really. Did that come from you?
No, this was before I even knew that journaling could help with things like pain and that. But then when he left the military and we went to Saudi Arabia, I would say that bit was tougher.
Yeah.
Because he was working for the Saudi king, effectively, that he was the customer, he was the guy who's flying around. And I had no say. There was no support for the wives, no support for the family. I remember, as I said, we 2 years waiting for a visa, and then we got out there, and he was meant to come back here, help me pack, and then move out with me. And they gave him a week off instead of a month off. So he met me in Riyadh and took us to our new house, which was, by the way, covered in dust because dust gets everywhere. It was like we were moving into a ruin. And I remember walking in going, oh my God, this is our new house. And there was no one from his company checked up on me. And then he was then sent to Jeddah, which is like 10-hour drive away. And I'm left in Riyadh on my own, not able to drive, trying to get kids into school and nursery and all of this. And I knew absolutely no one.
No support around at all.
No support. But in Riyadh, there's quite a good military community. So I tap into some connections and I meet up with some RAF people up on the BAE Systems compound up there, and they became my friends. But I very quickly realised how lucky they were being supported by the military. They have a mentor. As soon as they get out, they get a mentor to introduce them to where the supermarkets are. They get a welcome pack of stuff whilst they wait for their freight. We didn't even have a freight. I just had my suitcase. And, they were going, oh, the welcome pack doesn't have a potato peeler. And I was just like, you guys don't know how good you got it.
Oh.
And then they just stopped paying him and they stopped paying school fees. So we were evicted in Riyadh. So the military days were easier than the Saudi days. And this is where I was, with all that stress, I could, my neck flared up. I remember having another MRI for my neck in Saudi. And now I realise that it was just the stress of all of that. Yeah. I remember my little boy going, Mummy, when are we going to go home? I was like, this was when we were in a hotel room in Saudi. And I was like, this is home.
Oh no, that is the worst, isn't it? I've had that with my little boy crying, I want to go home. And it's like, yeah, this is it now, buddy. It's all different.
Home is where your toothbrush is, dude.
That's it, exactly. Or I would say home is where mummy is, basically. Like, where we're all together.
Exactly.
So you touched on your beat pain methodology. So tell me how that all came about, what exactly it is, because it's really interesting that you turned your experiences round. You helped yourself and now you help other people. So I want to hear all about it.
So I'm coming at it from a massage therapist, cranial sacral therapist point of view.
Right.
But all my clients come to me with chronic pain. And it was I wanted to sort of make some kind of methodology, put together everything that I was doing and everything that I'd learned into one package. And so I came up one night at about 3 a.m. in the morning with the beat pain idea. So BEAT stands for brain, energy, activity, and therapy. So with these 4 pillars, I educate and coach people out of pain. So by understanding the brain's role, or more specifically, the nervous system's role in pain, we can start to reduce nervous system activity, calm the nervous system, understanding the emotional roles, understanding the psychology behind why we get pain, understanding that pain is there to protect us, but we might not always know what it's protecting us from. That all comes under the B, the brain element. And then the E is energy in the form of nutrition and sleep. So we can't get better if we're not getting, nourishing sleep.
Yeah.
And we might think that, popping these painkillers or having a glass of wine is going to help me sleep. That's giving us a sedative sleep. So it's not actually helping us heal. So we work on trying to maximize sleep so that we know that our body's in an optimal position for getting better.
Yeah.
And along with that is nutrition. So I've done a nutritional management of pain course because I've I've experienced benefit from doing the keto diet. I just couldn't believe how flexible I felt and how much more energy I had and how much better I felt in general from the keto diet. So I thought, oh, there's something about this nutrition thing.
Yeah.
So I went and did the training. So I add that into the beat pain methodology in the energy section. Then the A is activity, or rather exercise or movement or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I'm got my physical education officer experience from the military. I'm also an ex-PE teacher and I'm a Pilates instructor. So with all that, I basically prescribe exercise for individuals that come on my program, because everyone comes at a different level. You know,
Yeah.
their body tolerance is different. So I tailor it very much to where they're at. And then the T element is really just the therapy element, which is what I do in my clinic in Shropshire. But if for those online on the Beat Pain program, by the end of the program, if they, more often than not, the BEA elements have helped them and they then know why they're in the pain and they know what they can do about it. But
Yeah.
if they don't, then I can signpost them to specific therapies that I think might work for them, because I've got a pretty good idea of all the therapies out there.
Yeah.
Whether it's acupuncture, whether it's cranial, whether it's massage, whether it's hypnotherapy, whatever. So I signpost, and if they're local, they can of course come to me. So
Nice.
yeah, that is
Okay.
the beat pain methodology.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And so you deliver that, you have clients, so I'm sure you've got social media links and websites and things like that. So how many people have you helped so far? How long have you been going for?
So, well, I've been doing the massage and cranials for 12 years. So I've helped hundreds of people with hands-on therapy. But
Amazing.
since I launched this Beat Pain, so I only launched it earlier this year. I came up with the idea a year ago, and then obviously lots of website building and building up audiences and all this.
Yeah.
I got my first client earlier this year, and I've since seen 5, because it's 1-to-1. It's quite intensive,
Yeah.
and they're all improving. They're all going
That's
away
brilliant.
with their lives back. You know,
Yeah.
they've kind of dug out of that deep dark hole of chronic pain. And I do an inflammatory index score at the start and at the end, which is quite a good measure. And yeah, their inflammation, their systemic inflammation around the body is reduced massively just from doing following the steps.
Yeah, gosh, that's amazing. And that must take some work on their part as well, to let go of things that you've been holding on to. That's hard, isn't it? Because I know that you can feel comfortable in the uncomfortable
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
and that's a change, isn't it? To let go of something you've been holding on to for so long. It's quite a change.
But
Can be
also just
scary.
buying into the concept that someone's pain is not from a physical cause is a massive step, because
Yeah.
we're so in this culture where doctors and medicine know it all and that's what's going to fix us.
Yeah.
Yet, you know, you look back historically, like thousands of years, we've been so much more in tune with our bodies and we haven't always needed the amount of medicine that we've got
Yeah.
today. And don't get me wrong, I think doctors and medicine are amazing when it comes to trauma, to acute, to things like cancers and all of this. But when it comes to chronic pain, they just looking at that physical, biological cause of pain. They're not looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And so getting people to buy into that in the first instance is my first challenge. But then once they've brought into that, and then I'm talking more about the kind of pain education side of things, I get clients going, oh my God, that so resonates with me. Yeah, that makes sense. And it's like a light bulb moment, because they're like, oh, okay, I don't need to fear my pain.
Do the medical profession buy into this? Because it's science-based, right? It's not like hocus
Yeah,
pocus stuff. This is real scientific, like neuroscience stuff, isn't it, really?
yeah, yeah, it's definitely science based, but the science is quite new, as in a decade old.
Yeah.
And therefore it hasn't filtered into the medical training. So the medics, I think, get something like 16 to 20 hours of training on pain. And from what I understand is that pain education is mainly acute pain. So like the pain that you get from a broken bone or a sprained ankle. They don't get so much of the training on chronic pain, and it's very different. Yeah.
Okay, so if someone's listening to this and they are feeling super overwhelmed and they're struggling with chronic pain, what would be your first bit of advice for them to kind of help themselves?
First of all, I'd say open up your mind to other causes of pain other than the physical cause, which doctors may have been trying to decipher. I, on my website, have a wellness hub, which is free, and it's got lots of blogs there about pain. I talk about the different types of pain. I talk about why pain medications might not be working, because actually a lot of the medications only work 20 to 30% of the time in chronic pain.
Yeah.
So I've got a whole load of useful blogs there. I've got some recipes. I've got some short Pilates videos. So they could start there. I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm at _beat_pain now. And then on Facebook, I'm Beat Pain Therapies. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So yeah, follow me on any of those platforms. Okay. And I've got a free training video linked with those platforms if they want to watch that. And then following that, you can always book a free consultation with me if you're, a lot of people are sort of, oh, maybe it won't work for my pain, because everyone's pain is individual.
Yeah.
So if you're unsure whether it's going to work for your pain, book a free consultation with me. We can talk about it. I'm not going to sell you a program if I don't think it's going to work. Yeah. And if I don't think my program will work, I can probably signpost you in a suitable direction.
Yeah.
But what I find is, like, say you got 3 people with back pain, they go to the doctor, they tend to get the same treatment. It's like, okay, we'll take these drugs, maybe we'll book you in for an MRI, but yeah, take these painkillers. Whereas with me, I get those 3 people with back pain and I'm trying to understand their root causes of back pain. So for one of them, it was they're going just through a really stressful period in their life. They weren't exercising, they weren't eating properly, they were maybe drowning their emotions in a bit of alcohol. So we improved all of that, realized that all of that was contributing to pain, and that's what helped for that person. Another one was, they were so worried about their other half, a diagnosis of cancer in the family, that became the be all and end all, and they just weren't putting themselves first. They weren't looking after themselves, and they had that emotional worry. That's what caused that person's pain. And then, another person is, again, so often it's like a stressful life event that's triggered something. And then, we look at that and unpick it. So with the 3 people with back pain, basically what I'm trying to say is that they've all got different root causes. Yeah. And that's what we address in the program. We look at that root cause by trying all these different pillars from the Beat Pain. And then that gives them that empowerment. They're like, oh, okay, so now I know what I can do about it.
So bringing it back to the military community, so there was a study in the States that I found, so I was trying to dig out some data, but the overarching kind of outcome of this study was that chronic pain and stress are quite common among military wives. So again, like I say, this is the US military we're talking about. I don't know about the British military. It's very understudied, really. So the study showed that there was a highlight of the emotional toll of military life, which we all know about. The wives described anxiety, loneliness, and stress, all linked to deployments and relocations. And they shared how the stresses often led to physical issues like chronic pain, sleep disturbances, and fatigue. So one spouse wrote, and you've touched on this as well in what you were saying, she looked back and realised that for the last 3 months of his deployment, she said, I couldn't seem to get well, as I think I was so stressed, but you just have to keep going. And I know loads of people that say that, like, and it might just even be a cold, but it's just like, oh, I just can't shake it. I just can't get rid of
Mm,
this. Or it could be headaches, like, oh, I've had this headache for weeks or days or whatever. And I hear that a lot, like, I just can't get well, but you have to keep going.
yeah.
So I think that is quite common among military wives, even though it's not studied in this country. I do hear that. And I know I've struggled with things myself in the past, that sinus issues I get a lot, and headaches. Um,
I
so
think we all have our like sort of go-to areas for pain.
yeah,
That kind of common, oh, I always get hit with a sore throat, or I get hit, with my back pain. With each individual it might be different, but it's common in that individual whenever they get a
yeah,
bit run down or
that's it. I think with sore
yeah.
throats, that's interesting because kind of, spiritually, they say that it's that there's something you want to say, but you can't say it or something. But is that physical? Do you think your throat gets sore because you're holding tension there because you're trying to say something but you can't? Like, is that a physical, like scientific thing?
Again, like with the somatic emotional releases, sometimes when you do the technique near the throat, you get an emotional release of like maybe past abuse or something, or you've had to be that child that's had to just stay really quiet because your parents are arguing or fighting, or
Yeah,
so it can be linked, whether that leads to a sore throat. But we can hold emotions in the throat. If you're picking up like generally a sore throat, it's probably linked to a sort of an immune system thing where your immune system's a bit suppressed. But that can also then be linked with tiredness and stress, can't it?
yeah,
How many times when we're tired and stressed we get hit with a cold because that immune system's fighting, and it's all really, really linked, because our
yeah,
immune system mainly lies in the gut. And then if you're constantly stressed and not sleeping, then our autonomic nervous system stays in that fight flight mode, not rest digest mode. So then the gut's not getting a look
right.
in anyway. So it, in answer to your question, yes, it can be linked, but the reasons can
In
vary.
different ways.
Yeah.
So it's the same with sinuses. So I get like sinus headaches a lot and pain around here, and I think that's really common with mums. And it's always put down to that the kids are bringing home loads of germs, but I just wonder if it's something else. I just wonder if it's just stress, and so it's like you say, it's an immune response or unable to fight that cold. At the school gates are full of mums just powering through. Oh, I'm all right. I've got a cold, but I'm all right. Meanwhile, the
Yeah.
husbands take to their bed for 2 days or something.
With man flu.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, it's there's always bugs around, aren't they?
yeah,
But it's whether we've good enough with our body armor, whether we
yeah.
can defend them off. And that body armor is our, nutrition, our immune system, our gut, our
That's
nervous
it.
system, everything.
And so when you're
Um,
under stress and pressure, it can impact all of that, can't it?
and how often do you find that you just keep going,
Yeah.
then the holidays hit, and then you're bedridden?
Yeah, that's the worst thing. Why is that? Is it because you've been holding on to everything and
Yeah,
then the second you relax, it's like
it's
all the bugs just go whoa and get you?
yeah. I think it's so Gabor Mate's written a book called The Body Says No, and I think that's an absolute result of, the body's saying no, enough's enough. Can't keep
Wow.
going.
That is absolutely standard. And also, um, from a military wife's perspective, things like that just seem to happen as soon as your partner goes away. Like they go
Yeah.
away and then all the shit hits the fan and you're like, "Oh, great."
And don't you find as well, as a military wife, I feel like we're meant to portray this sort of image that we're strong, we can cope, we can deal. They've married us for a reason,
It's a
because
stoicism, isn't it?
the
Like
stoicism,
tradition.
absolutely. And you've therefore maybe not sort of living life true to yourself, and just that might be a reason why you're suppressing emotions,
Yeah.
possibly. Certainly for me, like my identity was I'm really strong and fit, That's why I joined the military, to be a physical education officer. And then, pain took that from me. I no longer felt strong and fit. But again, like, I'm a military wife, I'm meant to cope with this. I'm meant to cope with him going abroad. I can do this. I'm meant to cope.
Yeah, that's it.
But I wasn't coping.
Yeah, not going to let the side down.
Yeah. So I think from that, maybe it's giving the message that it's okay to say that you're not okay.
Okay, so that leads me on to my next thing about early warning signs. So how can you prevent yourself getting to a point of, like, severe chronic pain, or this immune response where you just seem to be ill all the time? Like, what can you look out for?
I think, I don't know, looking out for, I'm going to start with sort of preventative measures, is doing everything that a healthy lifestyle tells you to do. Eat well, exercise, take some time out for you every single day. I think, especially as mums, especially when they're on deployment, you're constantly at somebody else's beck and call.
Yeah.
So having that time out for you, even if it's just 5 minutes while you just sit on the sofa and you do nothing, or you have a bath, whatever it might be, that's what I'd say is your preventative measures. And then the early warning signs would be, the more time we take being still, the better able we are to listen to our bodies and what it's telling us. And then that becomes your early warning signal. You kind of go, oh, I've got a bit of a niggle.
Right.
Like, at the moment, I've got a niggle. I've got a knot right at the back of my shoulder. I know it's because I'm stressed. It's Christmas. I've got work. I'm going away tomorrow for the weekend. I know that that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I've become more attuned to my body, and therefore what my body probably needs.
So you need to listen.
Yeah.
So Barbara O'Neill, this Australian health person, she describes, like, your body knocking at the door when you feel unwell, or when you feel a pain. It's your body knocking, and when you take, like, paracetamol, you're just quieting down the knocking, but you're not getting rid of the pain. It's just the knocking's gone away, but the thing that your body is trying to tell you about is still there. Like you said, masking.
It's a bit like the engine light coming on your dashboard. You're like, oh God, I can't deal with that right now. Let's just put some black masking tape over it.
Yeah, exactly. So you need to listen, I suppose, like you're saying, try to be in tune.
Yeah.
But the problem is, I'm going to sound mono, I'll put my humbug hat back on, is when you're so busy and you're so stressed and your body comes knocking at the door with the pain, it's like you can listen and you can be in tune and you can think, right, I need to do something healthy, or you can think, Jesus Christ, I'm so busy today, I've got so much to do, gonna neck some paracetamol and ibuprofen and I'm gonna crack on with my day. It's hard, isn't it?
But then maybe that's when in the morning and you're sitting down with your journal and you're doing your non-negotiables, that's when you go, okay, today I'm just going to have 10 minutes of doing a breathing exercise or a meditation, or
taking the humbug hat back off.
Listen to a calm app or whatever it might be. That might be your non-negotiable for that day.
Okay, that's amazing. So it all comes back to how you start your day and trying to get that bit of a motivation to be positive and to do something for you.
Yeah. Prioritize yourself. And I know as mums that sounds really selfish. You're like, I can't put me first because everybody else needs fed and watered and all of this. But actually, if you don't prioritize you and you get broken, the whole ship sinks.
What advice would you give to military spouses struggling to balance their emotions and physical well-being in the face of military life challenges?
First of all, talk about it. And that's where I think the military wife community is really lovely.
Yeah.
Because chances are you're not the only one feeling the way you're feeling. And if you don't feel like you can talk about it, then offload it in some way, whether that's a journal, talking to yourself in the mirror, or, one useful thing is just writing on paper just exactly how you feel, and then just ripping it up and burning it or something. It's quite cathartic.
Amazing. Brilliant. So just
Main
really
thing is to offload it.
Yeah, offload it and take advantage of the military community. I mean, there's loads of supportive social media groups where you can post anonymously, and I know that people do take advantage of that. There's lots of great advice and support in those
I'd
groups,
say
which is
offload it, but also feel it. You know, uncomfortable feelings we want to bottle away and not feel it. But
yeah,
actually, we need to feel it in order to process it.
that's it.
So if you feel like bursting out crying because it's all got too much, then maybe that's just what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love a
We're
good
always
cry.
afraid to cry, aren't we? It's like when you
Yeah,
see someone else crying, it's like, oh, here, have a tissue. But actually, what you're saying is, stop crying because you make me feel uncomfortable.
yeah, yeah,
Just
absolutely.
let it out. I watched a movie the other night with my son. He looked at me and went, Mum, you're crying. I went, I know, I can't help it.
If you could go back and talk to yourself during the most difficult times, what would you say?
Some positive self-talk, like, Katie, you're doing amazing given the circumstances you're in, and don't
Yeah,
worry if you feel like you're showing weakness. It's normal. I don't know. I think I would just lots of positive self-talk,
lots of positive
because I think I
self-talk.
was like, I'm not coping. I'm not being a good mum. Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. That. I also, it's hard to say, and I was talking to another pain expert about this, because a lot of people have been in pain for a good couple of years before they start reading about the new pain science.
Yeah,
I wish I knew about that earlier on.
yeah,
So if I was to go back, I wish somebody gave me a book or a YouTube video or something to give me that. Oh, so it's not my damaged my spine isn't damaged, or
yeah,
um can I swear? My
yeah. I've swore a
my
lot.
spine isn't fucked.
Yeah,
I'm okay. If somebody gave me some of that information earlier on in my journey, God, that would have been so much better. I think there's I'm a real fan of Zoe Blaskey from Motherkind, and she's just launched her book end of the summer, August time, I think.
yeah,
And so much in that book makes me realize that a lot of what I was feeling was just what normal mothers feel. You
yeah,
know, this kind of we go through a huge hormonal change, just like adolescence.
yeah,
And my pain came on in that, first year of being a mother. I'm learning who the new me is and all of this. So I would, yeah. Oh, there's so much knowledge out there now, which is great.
I used to run a
You know,
children's mental health service, and we did positive parenting groups, so evidence-based parenting interventions. I don't know if you've ever heard of Incredible Years or Triple P or anything like that, but one of the main things that come out of them, because it was like group therapy, is people realizing that they're not the only ones going through those issues, or it's not just their kid that's a nightmare, or whatever. Just talking about it, because then you realize that the behavior that, well, they were realizing their child's behavior that they thought was, you know, all about their child and that their child's a nightmare, is normal. Like every kid goes through this, it's a phase, and there are things they can do. And I think that's like with the military community, and you talk about how you're feeling when you're stressed or struggling or finding something difficult, and then negative self-talk will tell you that it's you and that you're a failure and that you can't cope. Whereas actually when you talk to other people and they say, oh yeah, I feel like that too, that just that knowing that it's not just you makes you feel better, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think being told, when you're struggling with the kids in a supermarket or something, and then an older lady comes up to you and go, oh, embrace those years, they're the best. And you just think, what? Like, if this is the best, then I just want to end it now, that.
Yeah,
And Zoe touches on this, that, it's not great at times, and it's not designed to be great, but everyone is feeling that.
yeah,
And the other thing I was going to say is, when our children play up, what I found in those early years, my second was was a real challenge. And he was crying during the day, and he was just, I used to refer to him as my little nightmare, and I feel really bad now because he's an absolute blessing. But what I've learned is that was during my really, really tough bit where I was solo parenting in the UK and my husband was in Saudi, and I was just waiting, getting told next month for 2 years. He was absolutely feeding off my stress.
Yeah.
And stress is an energy. So if you are stressed as a mum, your kids absolutely pick up on it. So once again, look after you first, because there'll be a ripple effect throughout the whole family.
Yeah, because cortisol is leaky. We all walk around in a hormone cloud. So I learned this from Dr. Tara Swart, I think, a neuroscientist. So when you're stressed, you leak cortisol out of your pores, and it comes out like a good foot from you. And so it's particularly evident in office environments. So where you've got people that are stressed in work, and the whole office will be stressed because you're actually, it's pretty gross. You're absorbing other people's cortisol, and then that makes you stressed because your cortisol levels are consequently going up.
Yeah, I can absolutely believe that. And I think I've read somewhere, possibly from Zoe's book, that it also is in your milk. And I was breastfeeding at the time.
Oh gosh.
So yeah,
But then
if you're a stressed mum whilst pregnant or breastfeeding, then yeah, your child's getting a good dose of cortisol.
it just feels like another thing to feel guilty
Guilty
about, though.
about, I know. And I
And then you
do
feel more
guilty.
stressed, and then you
Yeah.
pass more stress onto your kids
But
and
then you
feel
just
more
got to
guilty.
remember we did the best that we could at the time with what we knew.
I think that's it. I think it's the self-care, because like you say, if you run out of steam, then you're no good to anybody. So you have to put yourself first, as hard as that can be sometimes for a mother, because you want to put your kids before anything. But
Yeah.
you can't do anything for your kids if you're not well. So put yourself first, positive self-talk, some positive habits, small 1% gains, and try to move and eat well if you can, really.
Yeah, sounds like a long list, that, doesn't it?
And in the military, it does sound like a long list. Make use of the community, because the military wife community is like no other, for sure.
And here's another little analogy, which is from Zoe's book.
Right.
She talks about you as the parent, whether that's the mum or the dad, as being like the pilot of the airplane or the ship.
Yeah.
And would you get on that ship if you knew that that pilot was really sleep deprived?
No.
No, you wouldn't. So you need to make sure that you as the pilot
Yeah.
are well nourished and well rested and all of that. And it's funny because I read that, and my husband's a pilot. So I said to him, I said, so whose sleep is more important, yours or mine? Because I'm piloting this family when you're away, and you're actually piloting an aircraft with people in it. So of course he said his sleep was more important. It turned into a bit of a joke. But yeah, imagine, visualize yourself as that pilot of the ship or the aeroplane, which I think is military related.
Yeah.
And make sure you're well rested.
That's it. Yeah, amazing. God, it's been so interesting, and there's so many more questions. So I think maybe in the new year we might do a part 2 if you're up for it, because
cool.
I've got so much more stuff to ask, but I've already kept you for so long, so I won't keep you any longer.
No problem.
I had a last question, but I think we've covered it. The most important lesson you've learned through your whole process that you want to share with others?
That knowledge is power. The more I know about pain, the more I feel empowered to control it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed that. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I do enjoy doing these podcasts. It's fun.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, I enjoy learning about everybody. And I think your story is actually really incredible. Everything that you've been through, and to come out on top and using all of that to help other people. It's so inspirational.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.